never happen. Talk about, for a minute, if you would, why it's so important in this moment right now to have strong leadership in the White House, our commander-in-chief, the leader of the free world. We see things going on in the Middle East. We see what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. We see China, saber rattling in the South China Sea. We see all of these things feeling rather unstable around the world. Why is it important that we have Donald Trump back there to make sure we stabilize things?
Yeah, such a good question. And I didn't fully appreciate this, Laura, until I got into the United States Senate. And what even some of my Democrat colleagues will admit, of course, when the cameras are off, but they will admit that the bad guys all over the world, they were kind of scared of Donald Trump, right? Yep. and that fear kept a lot of aggression in check, and it kept a lot of wars that otherwise would have started from starting in the first place. And why do you have Russia invading Ukraine during Kamala Harris's watch? And why do you have Iran and Hamas attacking Israel during Kamala Harris's watch? And why do you have China saber-rattling during Kamala Harris's watch? It's because who could possibly fear Kamala Harris? No one, right? I don't even say that to make fun of Kamala Harris, a little bit for that reason, but more importantly, think about this. This is a woman who is terrified of softball media interviews, and we think that she's going to sit in a room with Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. Look, Laura, I was raised by a grandmother who was a devout Christian, by the way, but also loved the F word. She was a woman of many tensions. But my grandmother was tough. She was smart and she was tough. I can't imagine having somebody like Kamala Harris, who's terrified of her own friendly media negotiating on behalf of the United States. You think it's bad now, and it is bad now. It's only going to get so much worse because this stuff compounds on itself, right? One bad domino falls, and then another bad domino falls, and then all of a sudden, God forbid, you're in a major world conflict. And the other thing that Donald Trump, I think, the president really appreciated something that many American leaders have forgotten. President Trump appreciated that the most precious resource we have in the United States of America, and I know we've got a lot of folks here today who fit this description, is the people who put on the uniform and are willing to sacrifice their lives for their fellow citizens. That's an amazing thing. But what do you do with precious resources? You use it wisely. You don't ask our military to be the policemen of the world. You ask them to be the defenders of the United States Constitution and the people who swear allegiance to it. And that is important. That peace through strength approach, but also the smart diplomacy, right? Peace through strength, smart diplomacy. That's the record of Donald Trump. And Laura, you remember this, I'm sure, better than I do. But remember when they said, the media and people like Kamala Harris said that we'd have World War III?
Oh.
Again, it's another you stole the cookie, not me. They're on the verge of World War III, and they have the audacity to say that Donald Trump, the president of peace through strength, is anything but. We need to get back to stability in the world, and Donald Trump is the only guy who's going to deliver it.
Absolutely. All right. We have time for one last question. Our lucky last question is coming from John. Hey, John.
Hi, Senator Vance and Chairwoman Trump. I'm John. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm currently in law school. And I'm worried about the opportunities for the future. And under Sleepy Joe and Kamala, inflation has been catastrophic, and the economy is a disaster.
Sure.
So what are the Trump-Vance team going to be able to do to bring down this record-hot inflation and create more economic opportunities for younger Americans?
So I appreciate. So I appreciate the question. I want to answer it. Before I do, could we just give a round of applause to the great RNC co-chair, Laura Trump, for doing such a good job for our party. She really.
Thank you. They're not cheating in this election, I can tell you that much.
That's right. But one of the things, Laura, I think you've done is give people faith in this election. And obviously, nothing's ever going to be perfect. It never was. It never will be. But we are in a much better position in 2024 thanks to the leadership of Laura Trump. So get out there and vote. Get out there and vote.
Yeah.
Just don't clap. Get out there and vote, because we're winning North Carolina, but we're only going to keep winning it if we work our tails off for the next 11 days. Now, I want to answer your question, man, because, look, in some ways I'm heartbroken at the sentiment behind the question, because the American dream, man, is the story of my life. I was raised by my grandmother. We didn't always have a whole lot of money, but we always had faith in the promise of this country. I genuinely believed, even when times were really tough, that because this was the greatest country in the world, so long as I worked hard and played by the rules, I would be able to achieve my dreams. And to me, that was above running for office or starting a business or writing a book. That was getting married and having a family, and that's the way in which this country has been best to me. Is we've got 3 beautiful little kids. You know, there's sometimes hellions, but we love them anyway, and that's the way in which the country's been so good to me. And what I worry about is, unless we get better leadership, man, the next generation is not going to be able to talk about the future in the way that I was able to talk about the future when I was growing up in Middletown, Ohio. I think there are a couple things that we got to do. So number one is, you've got to make it easier for young Americans to build wealth in this country. We've got way too many Americans, way too many young people. They're mired in credit card debt. Credit card delinquencies have shot through the roof over the last few months. They have no prospect of owning a home. They have no prospect of really building a life. I don't want young Americans to be paupers, to be permanent renters in the society built by their parents and grandparents. I want them to have a life. And that life, I think, starts with owning a stake in this country. So to be very specific, we want to do a few things. Number one, like I said earlier, we're going to drill, baby, drill to lower energy costs, but also to create a lot of good jobs in the energy sector. And also, that'll make it easier to manufacture in the United States of America. The biggest cost for our manufacturers is often energy. If we lower energy costs, we're going to create a Donald Trump golden age of prosperity in the United States of America, and that wealth is going to flow to everybody. Young, old, rich, and poor. That golden age of prosperity is fundamentally why Donald Trump is running for president this time around. We're going to do it. We got to. Second thing we got to do is, we've got to make it easier for young people to buy a home, right? Housing crises have increased by 40% under Kamala Harris's leadership, man. I want you to be able to grow up, finish law school, get a good job, buy a home, and raise a family if you so choose. And that dream is getting further and further away for a lot of young American families. When President Trump is back in office, here's what he's going to do. Number one, we're going to lower interest rates so that people can afford to buy homes again. Mortgage interest rates way too high. Number two, because we've got a lot of illegal aliens in this country that are occupying homes that ought to go to young Americans, we're going to deport people, and we're going to get a border back in this country to make sure American homes go to American citizens. And then the third thing that we're going to do, and President Trump, it's one of the biggest and starkest differences between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and there's a lot of them. But Kamala Harris actively brags about making it easier to ship American jobs overseas and to raise taxes on working Americans. And think about this. I mean, I've never seen a politician, President Trump and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, I've never seen a politician actively say she wants to raise your taxes. Now, sometimes they do want to raise your taxes, but they lie to you. Kamala Harris is out there saying, we're going to eliminate big tax cuts for the American workers. We're going to raise the taxes of the American people. Donald Trump thinks that's exactly upside down. Here's what we're going to do when President Trump is back in the White House. We're going to cut taxes for American workers and penalize the companies that are shipping American jobs overseas. That's how you create prosperity for the next generation. That's what we're going to do. Thanks, man.
So just to go back to what I said earlier and I sort of mentioned, I said they're not going to cheat this time around. Let me just be very clear about this. We are never going to repeat the election of 2020 ever again, okay? When I took over as co-chair of the RNC alongside another North Carolinian, our chairman, Michael Watley, from right here in North Carolina.
Good guy.
We said, what do we need to do to make sure that we have free, fair, and transparent elections? And we said, you know what we'll do? We're going to put together the most comprehensive and aggressive election integrity operation this country's ever seen.
Hear, hear.
And in addition, we're going to just put it out there and see what happens. 100,000 people that we would train as poll watchers, poll workers, and legal experts. And I'm happy to report, as of about a week ago, we have trained 230,000 people in this country.
Wow.
But wait, there's more. We have decided that it's time we send a clear message. We're not going to tiptoe around these things. If you're a person who is going to cheat in an election, we will find you, we'll track you down, and we'll prosecute you to the full extent of the law. And if you are illegally voting in our elections, JD, and you are a person who is not a legal citizen and we find out you're voting, we're going to prosecute you to the full extent of the law. That means you're leaving this country.
That's important.
And I'll just say, the system is working. I get texts and phone calls, you can imagine, all the time since early voting has started. And we are identifying problems as they happen. There were 2,500 ballots we found in Lancaster County just yesterday that were fake ballots. Our team identified them, we got rid of them, and everybody knows what to look out for because we've trained everybody very well.
That's awesome.
They know
Awesome.
not to try it this time around. So we feel very good. But to close this up tonight, JD, I just want to say thank you to you specifically, because I can appreciate probably more than anyone what it's like to get thrust out into this. No one appreciates that more than our family. You have been a champion. You have been a rock star. We are so happy that you are going to be our next Vice President of the United States. And I always like to give everybody just a little something to leave with. If you guys need to get a little hyped up over the next 11 days, do yourself a favor. Go look up on YouTube all the videos, JD, of all the folks in the mainstream media on November 8th, 2016, reporting that Donald Trump was winning state after state after state. Donald Trump wins Ohio. Donald Trump wins Florida. Donald Trump wins North Carolina.
Hear, hear.
Y'all go back. Take a look at those. Get ready, because that's the kind of heat and energy we're going to be bringing on November 5th. So, JD.
That's exactly right.
Would you close us out and tell the great people here of my home state of North Carolina what we need to do over the next 11 days?
Here's first of all, Laura, thanks so much for doing this, and thanks to all of you for being here. Here's what we need to do over the next 11 days is get out there, vote, get your friends and family to vote, and remember who we're fighting for. I'm going to tell you just a very brief story, if I may, of a woman, a 40-year, she's a retiree, but for 40 years, her and her husband had done steak night on Friday night. And I'm not talking about buying a fancy steak at a steakhouse. I'm talking about going to the grocery store. And that was their ritual, and they did it in good times and bad until last year, because grocery prices got so high that under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's leadership, they had to give up this family ritual that gave them a lot of meaning. When we're going out there and we're working, and I know all of us are going to work as hard as we can, remember that what we're fighting for is to allow our people to live a good life in the country that all of us love. We've got the best people, the best resources, the most generous human beings anywhere in the world. The only thing that is broken about our country is the failed leadership of Kamala Harris. Let's change that and give the people a president that is fit to lead this country. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.